Test, test, test. Check, check.
1 minute warning, 1 minute warning. Please take your seats.
Good morning. I think I've started 1 or 2 minutes late. My apologies. Anyway, I want to welcome everybody that's here today and those that are joining us online. Good morning. We do have a very interesting speaker today, and we have a few announcements. So I'm going to bore you with the announcements, and then you'll be ripe for the speaker. Housekeeping. First, will you all remember to put your phones on silent, please, if you haven't already done that. Reminder that if you're speaking, David Churchill will have his mic, and if you give a wave, questions, answers, etc., David will find you. I'd also next like to thank Wilma Churchill's greeting team, Linda Denny and Mary Artuzo, who were with a smile at the door today. Thank you. I have a sad announcement today. We have lost a dear friend, and I'd like us to remember him with a moment of silence. Proven Wiley passed away on Friday, March the 6th. He had been a past president of PROBUS Guelph and District, and he was a faithful supporter of all of the PROBUS activities and programs. He was a charming, unassuming man with a generous heart and a good sense of humor. Those of us that played euchre with him will remember him fondly for his sense of humor. Always quick-witted. His daughter, he leaves behind 2 daughters, Laura and Leslie, and Laura, I guess, was with him and shared some words with David Churchill that I think are comforting to those that knew him. He's no longer suffering, and I'm at peace knowing he's with my mom again. Proven's wife, Linda, also a long-term member, passed away a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So Anyway, I'd like you to take a moment of silence and while we reflect on some memories of Proven Wiley. Thank you. And as his daughter also said, raise a glass to him. He was an avid Scotch drinker. And I'm sure that if that's not your preferred beverage, any glass raised to him, he'd be pleased with. Guests, moving along, we do have guests today. Catherine Picard and her husband Frank are here. Catherine is already registered and she will be introducing both of them. Catherine, can you give a wave? Oh, there you are. Yeah, and behind, that's very thoughtful of you. Okay, thank you and welcome. Anybody else have a guest with them today? Well, remember, if you do have somebody who's interested, friend, family, whatever, please bring them along and introduce them to us. We're always looking for new friends. Next, I want to go to, I know, a favorite topic for everybody. Our nominating committee is on the hunt. Jim Thompson is leading the charge this year. And we don't have a lineup yet. So we are currently seeking candidates for the positions of vice president, treasurer, and sadly, I'd just like to take a moment. Our current treasurer, Norm Fisher, is retiring, and Norm's done a great job, and very sorry that he's decided to leave, but he is retiring, and we wish him well, and he will, though, be here until October, so we don't have to say goodbye right away. We're also looking for co-chairs for the membership committee and for the IT and webmaster committee and chair for marketing and communication. If any of you have any skills that you're interested in sharing, we would love to have you speak up to us. Jim Thompson, Jim, give a wave. Dave Nodwell, Dave, where are you? Dave Nodwell, and myself, if you would like to speak to us afterwards. And our super recruiter is, of course, always Ann Boudra, who can convince anybody to do anything. So you might want to avoid Ann, but please check out one of the rest of us. I'd also like today to introduce a new member, Joyce McComb. And Joyce, if you'd like to come up the ramp here. Okay, come on over, Joyce. Now, Joyce has actually been a member for a little while, but has not been able to attend meetings, so I'm happy to introduce her today. Joyce is a good friend of Kathy Stevens and has been a resident of Guelph since 1974. She's a retired physiotherapist, was married for 61 years, and has 2 daughters who both live in the area, 3 grandchildren, and 1 great-granddaughter. Joyce's interests include spending time with her family, friends, going out for lunch and dinner. Maybe we'll see you at lunch today. And the Eastern Star, she's a member of the Eastern Star, enjoys walking, reading, and traveling. Please welcome Joyce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lena.
I'm glad you could come and join us.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Give us a minute. I'll be right back. Okay, next we're at our speaker stage. So like I said, I hope you're ripe and ready. I think this is going to be interesting. We have Mary Mitchell, who's going to introduce Neil Dunsmore.
It's my pleasure to introduce Neil Dunsmore. Neil is an award-winning speaker and former corrections officer and hostage crisis negotiator with the Ministry of Correctional Services. He has been a business owner and a Township of Centre Wellington councillor. Since his days in corrections, Neil has been a mental health advocate and is the author of Reflections in the Ripple, which is on the back table. His book chronicles his 531-kilometer journey to Ottawa to start a conversation around mental health and suicide and to erase the stigma that prevents so many people from reaching out and accessing the help they so desperately need. The Canadian Mental Health Association, Wellington Waterloo, created an award in honor of Neil's efforts. This annual award recognizes an individual in Wellington County whose actions have made a significant contribution to promoting life and preventing suicide. Neil is a very active board member of CMHA Waterloo Wellington Board of Directors. He is a committed Rotarian, which is evident as he has twice been the recipient of a Paul Harris Fellow, Rotary's highest honor. Most recently, Neil was nominated by a Laura Fergus Rotary Club and awarded Citizen of the Year by the Centre Wellington Chamber of Commerce. Neil's talk, The Power of One, covers his journey from Elora to Ottawa, the people he met, and the lessons learned along the way. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping here so I don't trip. Walked 531 kilometers and I'll end up breaking a leg here. You know you're getting old when your walking sticks have right and left marked on them. My wife did that for me. Right direction. I could hear them before I could see them. But when they came into view, or more importantly, when I came into their view, everything changed. Oh, they sent the cute, cuddly one in first, with the floppy Cocker Spaniel ears and the big brown eyes. I almost fell for it. Hey, look at you go. Wait a minute. Where are your friends? I looked around. I was surrounded. I looked back just in time to see the largest one lunge at my leg. I barely got my walking stick in the way. And that's when everything went crazy. There were teeth slashing and gashing. There was growling and howling. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the dogs might have been making some noise too. President Linda, members of the PROBUS Club, thank you for having me here today. That was the moment that I thought my 531-kilometer walk was coming to an end. And it would have, except for two things. First, the owner of the dogs bellowed, "Here, now!" and the beast bolted. Second, my cell phone rang. It was my friend Norman from my Rotary Club. Have you ever been really scared and your knees turned to mush? That's what I felt like. But that phone call, Norman just talked and I walked. He talked and I walked until I could see my support vehicle, and I knew the walk was going to end that day the way I had planned it. Norman didn't do anything special, but his voice helped to calm me so I could carry on. Norman's presence in my life helped me push past the fear. In that moment, Norman was everything to me. Over the course of this walk, 25 days in all, 22 days of walking, people coming to me and helping me became a common occurrence. Like the longest day of the walk, I was walking from Lindsay to Peterborough, 41 kilometers. I showed up, and there was my friend Jane at the head of the trail, with a bunch of other Toastmasters friends, all who were going to walk the first little while. But Jane was different. She brought her bicycle. I said, "What's up with the bike?" "Neil, I can't walk 41 kilometers, but I sure can pedal that far. I'm going to be with you the whole day." Well, I didn't know if I was happy with that or not, but when everybody left after about an hour and I'm walking along, I was in pain. For the first time, my feet really started to ache, and my knees were throbbing. I had one metal knee at the time, and this one that has been replaced since was bone on bone, and the pain was tremendous. But at the halfway mark, we stopped for lunch. You know the trails around here where they try to block trucks and cars from going down the trail? They put those big concrete barriers up. You know, they're about 4 feet high, about 8 feet long. Sometimes they put storage stuff underneath them. We came to one of those, and to me, that concrete block looked like a bed. So I hopped up and I laid down, take a load off my feet, my aching back. You know when your back's hurting and you lay down at first, how much it hurts till it relaxes? I was screaming in pain. And then suddenly, I felt a strange sensation in my feet. I looked down. Jane had removed my boots and my socks, and she was washing my feet. And then she began to deeply massage my feet. Oh my. I was in the middle of the woods with a beautiful woman massaging my feet. I'm married! So I did what any married man would do. I took out my cell phone, I took a picture of her massaging my feet, and I texted it to my wife. She's massaging my feet. The answer was quick and brutal. Sucks to be her, I'm still not touching them. But when I got up to walk again, oh my goodness, no pain. In that moment, Jane's presence and her magical fingers helped me persevere through the pain. In that moment, Jane's presence in my life meant everything to me. A couple of days later, deep in the woods, all alone again, life took a tragic turn. I looked down the trail. I had been seeing bear scat all along for days. My biggest fear was coming face to face with a bear. You can imagine how my heart sunk when I looked down that trail, and there, the side of the trail, next to a bank of blueberry bushes, sat a bear. The last road was 10 kilometers back that way. The next one was 10 kilometers that way. Now they say, when you get tired and fatigued, you make stupid decisions. So I made one of those stupid decisions, and I decided to keep going. Now I remembered my high school outdoor ed teacher telling us, when you encounter a bear in the bush, don't frighten a bear. That's what causes a problem. Let the bear know you're there. So I did. Hey, bear, I'm here, bear. On you go. Scoot. Bear didn't move. Just sat there. Oh, Lord, what am I going to do? Then I remembered something else he said. The key is to make yourself look bigger than the bear. So I took off my reflective vest and I put it on the ends of my poles and I held it up over my head. Look at me, bear! I'm huge, bear! On you go! The bear did not move. I put down the vest, put it back on, and I made the stupidest decision of my life. See, since the dog incident, I had a friend bring me bear spray and a hunting knife. So I unsheathed the hunting knife, took the safety off the bear spray, and I prepared for battle. Okay, bear, here we go. And I headed right for that bear. I dug in and I thought, here we go, buddy. I should probably tell you now that I had lost these about 2 days before this incident. So I can see that there's shapes out here, but I can't exactly tell you who you are. So imagine the shock and dismay when I got close enough to the bear. And it turned out to be a woman. Sitting on the side of the trail. Now, most men who have been married for any length of time and who have had their wife say, does this outfit make me look fat? You know how that can strike fear in your heart. And I had just called a strange woman I had never met before a bear. To say I was afraid would be an understatement. I began apologizing immediately. I'm sorry. I can't see without my glasses, and I honestly thought you were a bear. She didn't respond. Now, I may not be able to recognize a bear from a woman, but I spent 10 years in a maximum security detention center in some of the most stressful situations a human being should ever be in. And one thing I learned to recognize is fear. And that woman was terrified. I had a folding stool with me, so I unfolded it and I sat across the trail from her. Are you okay? No reply. I took out a bottle of water and I rolled it across the trail to her. She picked it up and she drank that as though she hadn't had a drink in days. And I took a sandwich out and I tossed it across the trail, and she ate it as though she hadn't eaten in days. She was staring blankly at me. I talked quietly, calmly, trying to reassure her. But I knew neither of us were safe where we were. And so I said, it looks to me like you've made some kind of a decision lately. And I don't know what's going on in your life, and I won't until you tell me. But I'm heading that way to Ottawa. Why don't you just walk with me? Because you keep staring back that way. So whatever it is back there. And I know you don't know me, but trust me, nobody's going to hurt you as long as I am here. I promise. And with that, she got up, and we both started walking, slowly. Slower than I was used to, but that was okay. Eventually, she began to talk. 10 years in a maximum security institution. I've seen some crap. But that woman, she scared the dickens out of me with the story she was telling me with what she went through. This was 2020. You remember what happened then? All of us were locked in our homes. This poor woman was locked in with her abuser, and she chose to run. The hairs on my arms are standing up, just thinking about the stories that she told me. She would not let me call 911 and get the police involved. But eventually, I managed to talk her in to taking my phone and calling a women's crisis line. She talked to him for a few minutes and she handed me the phone. They want to talk to you. Okay. Hello? Who are you? What are you doing out there? I said, I'm walking from Elora to Ottawa to raise awareness for suicide and mental health. My name's Neil Dunsmore. She said, where are you? I pulled up my map and I told her where we were, and I said, this is the next road. Can you get somebody to be there? And she said, I'll do my best. And we came up with a plan. So the woman and I walked all the way to that road. And then when we got there, that's when I got scared. Because until that moment, I had two directions to look at. Going to Ottawa, back to where she came from. But now at an intersection of a road, I had those and I had these. And my head was on a swivel. If he was out there looking for her, was he walking or was he in a car? He could come by at any time. So I took my stool and I put it behind a bank of bushes and I sat her in there and I gave her my cell phone. I don't know what's going to happen, but you stay there in case he comes by in a car. He won't be able to see you. And I wasn't sure in my head what I was going to do if he came by. And when I settled myself, I realized I had done it subconsciously. I was sitting on the ground, eating an apple, with my hunting knife. I assure you, my teeth worked just fine. I could have eaten that apple without a knife. I hadn't even realized I was slicing the apple up with the knife and eating it. And the bear spray was between my legs. So I knew what I was prepared to do. And then the heart-stopping moment when you hear a vehicle coming. And I held my breath, and I was praying that it would be the crisis people and not her abuser. My plan, if it was him, was to say, oh yeah, I saw a woman on the trail. She was like, 30 kilometers back that way, in hopes he would jump in the car and take off to go find her, and I'd have a chance to get her out of there. The vehicle pulled up right in front of me and stopped. The window came down. And this woman looked at me and said, what are you doing out here? And I said, I'm walking to Ottawa to raise awareness for suicide and mental health in my community. She said, Mr. Dunsmore, it is a pleasure to meet you. And then I went back into the bush and I got her out, got her into the van, closed the door so they could get away. They got about 15 feet and the brake lights came on and the reverse lights came on and the van backed up again. The door slid open, and she jumped out. You forgot your cell phone. And she took it from me, and in that moment, we both embraced each other. And she gave me a kiss on the cheek. She said, thank you. And I said, be safe. You're doing the right thing. And then she went on her way. In that moment, to that woman, my presence meant everything to her. When I got, let the secret out, I made it. When I got to Parliament Hill, and we were standing in front of the press and they were interviewing me, my pocket vibrated. I kept on with the interview and I never checked it. About an hour later, I took it out, and there was a text message from the crisis shelter. She is safe, she is getting help, and she says she'll never go back. Best text I've ever got in my whole life. A couple of days after that, I was driving about an hour to where we were starting. My son was my support team. We were staying at a friend's farm, and then we would drive to the trailhead, and we would do that until it was too long a drive to come back. So this was the last day we were staying there. But the drive was an hour. When the car phone went, and it said, call from Neil Dunsmore, and it was my number. Somehow I was calling myself. So I just dismissed the call. I'm an old man. I don't understand technology. How do you call yourself by accident? I don't know. And then I pulled up my phone, and I said to my son, that was actually a messenger call. And it came through my phone that way. He goes, oh, you should call them back then, Dad. And I looked at the name, and it was the same name as my brother, and I said, uh-oh. And my son said, no, Dad, Uncle Stephen's not on Facebook. I tried to help him, but he hates technology. So it's got to be somebody else. So I hit that green dot, and I called him back. And the call connected, and this young man says to me, Neil? And I said, yeah. Who's this? He says, my name's Stephen. I've never met you, but we're related. Oh. And my son looked at me. Is he crying? I said, yeah. I said, Stephen, what's going on? He says, life is too tough. My wife left with the kids. I can't work with COVID. This is just insane. And then the crisis negotiator in me kicked in. Stephen, are you planning on taking your own life? Are you thinking about suicide today? There's no other way. There's no other option. Stephen, that is a permanent solution to what are temporary problems. You can't be doing this. And I continued to talk with him, and eventually he said to me, you know, one of the things I regret in this life is that I've never met you or your family, because we're still in Scotland and you moved to Canada. So I said to him, after this is over, I promise you, I will bring my family to Scotland to meet you. But you have to promise me something. So what's that? You'll be there when we get there. He says, okay. And with that, he hung up. And my son looked at me and he said, do you believe him? Not for a minute. So what are we going to do? I said, I don't know. We're almost to the trailhead. I'm going to start walking because I think best when I'm walking. Stay close by in case I need you. Hands up if you know how to make an international 911 phone call. Yep, me either. What am I going to do? I could call the local police and ask them to connect me. I could even maybe, where my family is from in Scotland, pinpoint the town. I couldn't tell you what the street address would be. I couldn't tell you what the house looked like. What am I going to do? And then I remembered something. His father called my father on my father's 65th birthday 10 years ago. on Messenger. I'm an old man. I don't know how to delete crap on Messenger. So I pulled out my phone and it was still there. His contact. And he had that little green dot, which meant he was active. He was actually online. I was in the middle of the bush, up near Sharbot Lake somewhere. I got cell service for him to call me. I got cell service for me to call him back. And now, when I hit that green dot, I had cell service for his father's face to come alive on my screen. Neil, we're watching your walk on the Facebook, son. You're doing great. Never mind me. Your son is trying to take his own life right now. Get him some help. Oh, Neil, he's had so much. Don't tell me his troubles. I know them. Get him help now. And he was just about to hang up, and I said, wait! What? Call me back so I know what happened. And then he disappeared. It was the longest 6 hours of my life. I just walked wondering what happened to him. When finally I got a text message, again in the middle of the woods. Neil, his sister got there in time with the ambulance. He's okay. Another great text. Just near the end of my walk, disaster struck for me. I'd been out there on the trails, and with all the rain, the swamp on the north side of the trail and the swamp on the south side of the trail decided to work with the beavers together and raise the water level and wash out the trail. I stood there for a long time, staring at that water, wondering, do I walk through it? Or do I walk an hour and a half back to the last road and go around it? Well, I'm stubborn and stupid. I had prepared for this. I had sandals in my backpack. So I sat down on a rock. I took my boots and socks off myself this time because Jane wasn't with me. I put them in the backpack and I put my sandals on, and I had just put the backpack back on my shoulders when I heard an engine. This was a part of the trail where they allowed hunting. So the hunters were out in their trucks and their four-wheelers. And I could see this black truck barreling down on me. So I jumped up on the rock, and now I got to see how deep the water was. This was a Denali truck. So the bumper stood about this high, and he was pushing the water out of the way with his bumper, creating a wake. And I thought, oh, Lord, that's deep. I had to jump up and grab a tree branch because the water swamped the rock. And the truck came to a stop in front of me. And the window came down, and the guy was about my age. He looked at me, he says, "You walking that way?" I said, "Is that Ottawa?" He says, "Yep." I said, "Then that's the way I'm walking." "You're going to get wet." And then he drove away. I thought, you jerk. I settled myself, caught my breath, thought, oh, that is deep. I am going to be up to here in water. All right. And I started to go when I heard another engine. I thought, what is this, the 401? Back up on the rock, getting ready to jump up and grab the branch again. But this truck slowed, came to a stop. And the window came down slowly, one of those tinted windows. It came down, and it revealed this young man with this bushy black beard. "How you doing, bud?" "What you doing?" I said, I'm walking to Ottawa." "What you doing that for? Don't you know there's buses and trains that take you there?" So I'm walking to raise awareness for suicide and mental health. And all of a sudden, his whole demeanor changed. He turned to the passenger and said, "Did you hear that?" He's walking for suicide. And he turned back to me, he says, that makes you a hero in my book, bud. And in these parts, we don't let heroes walk through crap like that. Now, I cleaned that up because we're in a church. He says to me, hop in the back and we'll give you a lift. Well, you don't have to tell this old boy twice. So I threw my backpack in, I grabbed the side of the truck, I put my boot on the tire, and I propelled myself into the back of the truck, and I landed plop in a pile of dead partridges. Blood and guts everywhere. I looked into the window of the truck, and he looked back and said, we've had a good day hunting, bud. And then he backed up and drove me all the way through the puddle. Now, I was about to jump down when the passenger said, remember, there's another one about 100 yards down the road. He said, sit down, and he drove me through that one too. Wow. I got down and started to put my boots on, and he got out of the truck. What you doing for supper, bud? Take a partridge. I said, I must look like an outdoorsman with my knife and my bear spray, but I wouldn't know the first thing about skinning that. Oh, he says, give me your knife, I'll show you. It's not hard. It's okay. My son's out there, and he'll prepare dinner. Probably Kentucky Fried Chicken, but he'll have dinner ready. You've done enough for me, helping me get through these troubled waters. It wasn't until that night when I got back to the campsite with my son that I realized how much those two young men had helped me. When I took my boots off again and removed my socks, and I had bandages on several blisters that had developed. When I took the bandages off, the blisters had burst. If I had to walk through that water with open blisters, they would have soaked into the Band-Aids, and I would have had that bacteria sitting on an open wound all day. The infection would have been raging, and the walk would have came to an end. In that moment, the presence of a complete stranger helped me over those troubled waters, helped me get through that moment. It is impossible for us to be everything to everyone. But my message for you today is at any given moment, every one of us has the ability to be everything to someone. It just takes being human, stopping for a minute, making the eye contact, and talking to each other. Take a minute now to think about the people, maybe in this club or in your life, that you haven't had the opportunity to see in the last couple of months, maybe a year. That name that just popped into your head, do me a favor. Pick up the phone when you get home. Call them. Check in. Ask how you are. You don't know what to say? Just start with, how you doing, bud? What you doing? And let the conversation flow from there. You will probably find out that in that moment, that phone call, your presence in their life will mean everything to them. That's the power of one. We all have it, even for complete strangers. Just make the eye contact. Talk to them. Ask them how they are. I talk to audiences all over the province, and they always say, but I wouldn't know what to say, especially if they were suicidal. It's not your job to solve their problems. It's your job to make that human connection. Familiarize yourselves with the numbers and just call and say, you know what? If you need help, I'm going to sit with you today. Let's make the call together and get them the help they need. You're not here to solve the suicide problem, but you can be the conduit that helps the people who know how to help those people. So please, be that human connection in a world where we're all too busy on our phones. Look people in the eye and be everything. Madam President. Are there any questions? Look at that, I put them all to sleep.
I heard your talk at the men's club. I didn't hear the message until now. Thank you.
Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times. I'm the same way.
Hi, that was a great talk.
Thank you.
I carry this little card in my wallet, but it's not a number that's hard to forget. It says, thinking of suicide, if you need to talk, we're here to listen. 988.
Yes. And that has taken us 10 years. 10 years of working in the background to get 988. In the past, if somebody was hurting you, what do? Call 911. If you were thinking of hurting yourself, you had to remember 1-866-73 something or other. Really? Is it that hard to come up with that? But it took 10 years of advocacy to get 988. So if you're thinking of harming yourself, if you're thinking that life is too hard, there are trained professionals on the other end of that line. You can text it or you can call it, and somebody will send some help. Wellington, Waterloo, Guelph, Kitchener-Waterloo, Center Wellington have been a leader in changing the philosophy. We've had Here for Hope here for a long time. And again, it was a 10-digit number. But you could call and get mental health support from Here for Hope. We were the leaders in starting to put impact workers, which are mental health professionals that work with the police department. And so when they think it's a mental health call, they activate a mental health worker who attends the call with the police officers. And that's specialized training that prevents people that are in a psychotic break from getting shot by the police. It's not a perfect system, because we don't activate those people unless we know the person we're going to deal with has an existing mental health situation. So if you ever find yourself in that, where you know the person is struggling mentally, when you call 911 to ask for assistance, make sure you tell them that you know they have a mental health issue. So they send an impact worker, because it has a 95% success rate in de-escalating, keeping the person out of prison and into a hospital.
Would you put your hand up well in advance, please?
Let's see how far we can make him walk.
A great talk. My question is more about preparedness. Now, having spent a number of years wearing combat boots and whatnot, did you do some before preparation for your feet? I mean, that's critical. You mentioned how sore they were. So just let us know what you did for that long, long hike.
13 months of training. This whole thing came out of me trying to support a friend of mine. He's a retired police officer who did all these. He used to ride from Waterloo to Ottawa for cancer. He did the Tour Divide, which goes from BC all the way down to the States through the mountains. He's a bit of a whack job. And he was doing one down through the States, and he crashed his bike, and he tore his rotator cuff. And in fact, I had dropped him off at the takeoff point 2 days before, and then he called me 2 days later. He says, I'm home. I said, boy, you ride fast. He said, had an accident. Oh, so I went over to see him, and it was a long rehab. So it was in part of his rehab with his arm in a sling, and after the surgery, and he says, I can't ride anymore, not like this. So I said, well, come on, I'll walk with you. And he says, I'm thinking I might do a walk instead of a ride next time, Neil. So I thought, hey, support this guy. So I said, Pete, you walk, I'll walk a bit with you. All right. 2 weeks later, he's at my kitchen table, says, let's talk about your walk. I said, my walk? I'm walking with you. He says, no, I'm going to ride. You're going to walk. And that's how this whole thing came about. But I trained for 13 months. And I started, and I put it in the book, I started the very first day of training, I think lasted half an hour on a treadmill before my knee really started to ache. And it was painful. And then, so my philosophy became, get to the pain point and get 15 minutes past it. Get to the pain point, get 15 minutes past it. And so it took a long time. It took a lot of training, and I kept this thing a secret. I didn't even tell my wife. She said, look, it's good that you're exercising. And then about halfway through, I said, listen, I'm training for something. Really? And I told her, and she said, what? And I was a township counselor then. And again, it was in the middle of COVID. So, COVID had just hit and things were just shutting down. And I thought, this is going to be hard. But I kept training, and it wasn't until I had gotten to Christmas of that year, so I think probably about 10 months of training, that I felt comfortable enough that I might be able to do this. And so I made it public. And when you make it public, you're done. You got to do it. I don't mind making a fool of myself in private, but when I do something and I tell them in public it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And it was pretty funny because I would tell people, I told the mayor and the CAO who were friends of mine, I'm not going to be around in September because I'm going to be walking to Ottawa to raise awareness for suicide and mental health. And I'm a former hostage negotiator, so I've been trained to look at micro reflexes so I can tell when somebody's lying to me. And these two looked at each other, and everything about their body language says they think I'm full of you-know-what. And they said, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's what your voice is saying. What your eyes are saying is, there ain't no way, fatso. And so yeah, I knew that was going to be the reaction. But yeah, I kept training and training and training. And I'll be honest with you, the last day of training, and it's in the book too, I did 37 kilometers at my wife's family cottage. It's at the base of the Appalachian Mountain Range in Quebec. And I went there deliberately because I needed hills and I needed nobody that knew me, or I don't speak French. So I couldn't even talk to the locals. So I just put my head down and walked. And that last day of training, 1 week before I was to leave, I had a sleepless night. I thought, I'm making a fool of myself. I'm not going to do it. But I kept going, and I walked myself fit on that trail. I lost 60 pounds, re-regulated my blood pressure, and had my diabetes blood sugar completely under control. Now, I put 15 of those 60 pounds back on, but my wife's on it. She's identified the problem, and we're working at it. But yeah, it was a lot of training, and you have to put that kind of training into it, or you aren't going to make it. So we got to Ottawa, we got to Parliament Hill. I'm talking to the press, and one of the guys who was a strong supporter of mine, he was my partner in the prison system. So to say that we're close is an understatement. When you rely on somebody for your life, day in and day out, that's a strong bond. He was there with his whole family, his kids and his grandkids. They met me in Ottawa. There were 60 people in Ottawa when I arrived. We had to get a permit to get on the hill because they had shut Ottawa down. I walked from a green zone right into a red zone. And it was Senator Rob Black from Fergus that had got us the permit. Anyway, John was there, and the press is talking, and, an emotional time for me. And John came up and he put his arm around me and he said, brother, I would have never said this to you when you were out there, but I didn't think you would make it. I had no hope. He said, I am so darn proud of you. And I said, thanks, John. Then I went over to Peter, who trained me, the guy with the bicycle. He trained me. We walked all through COVID every day for months to train for this. I said, Pete, John didn't think I'd make it. Peter went into his wallet and he pulled out a piece of paper and he handed it to me. And I opened it up and it said, Peterborough. Peterborough? He says, yeah, that's where I figured you'd cack out. So there wasn't a whole lot of hope, but I persisted. And the training, it paid off in the long run. So it took me 3 months to feel my feet after the walk was over. My doctor was getting afraid. She was going to send me to a neurologist. Have you ever heard of Dr. Hose? Oh, baby, they work. I bought one of those, and I put that on my feet every day for 3 months before I could feel my feet again. My boys would come home, and they'd put their feet on, they'd jump out of the chair. Dad, that kills. And I look, it set at 5, I could barely feel it. But it took a long, it came back, and now I have it set at 2. But I use it every day just to keep the blood flow going through my feet to prevent neuropathy.
One of the things is that overcoming the stigma with mental health, and you've been very successful in moving that along. I wonder if you have any suggestions for what I notice is that not so much the stigma, but the mental illness itself prevents the person from getting the treatment they need, because they think, I don't have a mental illness, or,
Yeah.
and there's even a name for that.
Yeah, there is, and I can't remember what it is.
Anosogia or something. It's difficult to pronounce. Yeah.
So I get that question a lot, and my answer is usually the same. It's persistence and patience. And it's about phrasing the conversation around, what do you need today? So when a person is in crisis, telling them that that's irrational, that's a mental health issue, let's get you some help, that doesn't help them. It's the same when both my parents got Alzheimer's, and I took a training course with them, and it was really, she said, you're good at this. And I said, well, I've had this training as a hostage negotiator. It's the same procedures. It's not, what can I do for you? You should do this, you should do that. It's how can I help you? What is it you need in this moment? And you keep dropping really those breadcrumbs that take them down the path. And if they say, well, I just need to feel more relaxed. Well, if I can get you to a place of relaxation, are you okay with that? Yeah. Is it okay if I call somebody to get some help so I make sure that I do it right for you? Well, yeah. You just got them to make a contact with a mental health worker. It's breadcrumbs, and it's patience. And it is, because a lot of people with mental health issues, they don't believe it, and we see it, but we're applying a rational mind to an irrational situation. And so we have to step back. Empathy is the number one emotion I can ask you to use. Put yourself in their shoes and say, if I were them, how would I feel if somebody said this to me? And if it's a negative response in your mind, then don't say it. Find a different way to say it. But patience is, I thought I was taught patience as a hostage negotiator, but as a son of 2 parents with Alzheimer's, that was a life lesson. And it's just patience and taking them along. And then the hard part of the setbacks. The setbacks are, if you get somebody and they're on medication, medication always makes you feel weird, makes you feel different. They don't like how they feel under the medication. So when they stop having those thoughts, when they stop hearing the voices, I'm cured. I don't need the medication anymore. 3 weeks without the medication, they're worse than they were before. So it is a roller coaster. Well, it's not even a roller coaster. It's a hamster wheel. You're just going around and around and around. But patience and persistence. And when they give you that permission to get somebody else involved, that's when you go. That's when you go. Because it's hard for anybody untrained to do that. I have training, and I'm telling you right now, I am ill-equipped to deal with a lot of people. I just know the people to call. Did I see a hand up over here too? Oh, there's another one over here.
Is there any more?
Yep, behind you.
Remember, I have 2 microphones, so if you put up your hands during the previous question, I can get you a mic.
I wondered if you could tell us a little about your 10 years working within the prison system. I know that time's getting on, but it was
Sure.
a very interesting thing that you mentioned in passing. I wondered if you could tell us a little about that work.
I could come back another time and do an hour talk with you about our correction system, but I'll give you the highlights. 90%, and I'm not underestimating that number. 90% of the people that are locked up in our prisons are addiction and mental health issues. We're dealing with addiction and mental health by putting them in a warehouse, and they're really not getting a lot of help. So our corrections here, I was a corrections officer until 1998. It's from 88 to 98, and we had a really good system. We were far, far superior to the Americans. We actually were starting to make a dent, but it's an uphill battle. It's like pushing a 100-pound boulder up a hill with all the problems that we have in society. And I make no bones about it. I've spoke at many conferences, and this man has been there. We have locked horns, and I will always say it. The Harris government trashed our prison system, along with other things. He just ripped apart everything. And yeah, you go ahead and applaud, because I make no bones about it. And we did a leadership conference, and he came on after me, and I did my speech, and I sat down, and the guy beside me said, "That was brilliant, I loved it. You're going to like the next guy." "Who's the next guy?" "Mike Harris." "Okay, I'm leaving." He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "There's not enough of you in the room to hold me back from hitting that man." He changed us from a care, custody, and control system. Okay, that's in the Corrections Act. Care, custody, control. In that order. Care is the first one. Custody is keeping them in the building. And control is managing the behavior. He changed us from that to a control custody system. The care was taken right out of it. It's a warehousing system. I've been to some prisons in the United States. I made it a point of touring them because I wanted to see what the differences were. Do you know they feed a U.S. inmate 3 meals a day for $1.50? $1.50. There isn't any food in what they're getting. And when they tell you it's slop, it is slop. I'd go down there and talk with their crisis teams and their intervention teams. And number one cause of rioting in a U.S. prison, food. Canadian prisons, the food was much better. I was 175 pounds when I became a corrections officer. When I left, I was 275. Food was good, because the guards got to eat for free. Grilled cheese sandwiches and French fries, burgers. Every Sunday night was roast beef, mashed potatoes, and peas with gravy. I loved working Sundays. We even had a cook that was so good, on Wednesday he would serve liver and onions, and the inmates would eat it, because Ken could make his liver and onions taste like chicken. I would even eat it. Healthy for you. I hated liver growing up. I said, "How do you make it taste like chicken?" He said, "Oh, I got a secret." That all changed. The food, again, is outsourced, so it gets shipped in. It's worse, and I never thought I'd say this. It is worse than the food you get on an airplane. Prepackaged, very little nutrition. Terrible stuff. So our prison system has changed a lot. I still know some of the guys that work there, and the comments they give me is, we used to be in control. The Wellington Detention Center in Guelph had some of the baddest people in the country at one point, and most of you never knew. Never knew. I've had ambulance rides with police officers with fully automatic weapons because we were taking somebody who was a terrorist out of our institution to Hamilton. And we would fake it by calling an all-call to the police and the ambulance to go out to the Wellington Detention Center, and then we'd take the inmates out in ambulances, and so that in case there was somebody watching. But nobody knew, and we never had any real problems. But now, the inmates are in charge. In the Wellington Detention Center, we had them stocked in blocks of 10. One officer in charge of that 10, but he had a partner officer. So it was really 2 to 10. But if anything happened, we had officers on another floor, we were always 15 to 10. At the Maplehurst Detention Center right now, as we're talking, there are 99 inmates in one living area with one guard inside and 2 guards watching on a TV. And that's the fight Mr. Harris and I had when I saw that. I'm your hostage negotiator. I don't want to be that busy, and I don't want you to give my kids a video of my death. That's the way they've gone to. So who's in charge in that environment? If I have 100 inmates and I'm trying to stay alive, and they ask for something, are they going to get it? You better believe it. So the control is in their part, not ours. So I don't believe in that system. I never have. The number one prison system in the world today, Germany. Of all places, Germany. They treat their inmates with dignity and respect. You know, they give the inmates the keys to their own cells. Guards have a master key, but each inmate has a key to their cell. So it becomes kind of a home. And what happens when it's your home? You take better care of it. It gives them responsibility. It teaches them responsibility. There are daily inspections and strip searches and searching of their units. But they're in charge of it over the other inmates. So it gives them dignity and teaches them life lessons and gets them back. So, but if you want me back, I can talk about corrections all day. I'm the kind of speaker who speaks until he has to pee. So I'll be here all day.
With that, we'll put an end to the question period.
I'll stick around. By the way, the books are at the back if you want them. There's no pressure. I couldn't get my system hooked up again because I was just in New Zealand, and I guess it thinks if you're selling books in New Zealand, you come back to Canada, you must be a fraud. So I can only take cash, or you can e-transfer me. They're $25. All the money goes to the Canadian Mental Health Association, Waterloo, Wellington. So. Hi, Linda.
This is near and dear. This is very appropriate because I'm a retired psychiatric nurse, and I dealt with suicide all the time. I was on the board of directors for the 5-year strategies way back in the early 90s to get a youth center for Guelph, and also a suicide line and professionals who could work in the hospital as well as in corrections. So what you spoke about was near and dear to my heart.
Well, what you did makes you a hero to me because we're just building on what you started. So she deserves a big round of applause. That was hard work. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And thank you for the lively, passionate story.
That's a good way to describe me, passionate.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. I'll stick around if anybody's got any questions.
Am I on now? Okay, okay. I know you've already been thanked, but I have deep respect for anybody that can walk long distances, and I have naysayer friends among us who did not think I could do it, but I just have to brag. I walked the Bruce Trail end to end. Yeah, but I did not do what you did. I did not.
And it's rougher terrain. Good for you.
Yes, it is rougher terrain, I agree. But I just say that because, you know, sometimes you rise up when you're challenged.
Yep.
And it sounds like you've done that more ways than one. Thank you. You engaged an audience. You kept us not only entertained but informed, and not taking anything away from Linda, who already has given a meaningful expression of gratitude. But that was very enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Unless anyone has any other business, I think we might be running out of coffee and cookies, but we're not running out of friendship. So we have the room now for a little bit longer. Do enjoy it and enjoy each other's company. And thank you all very much. And I'm calling this meeting adjourned.